All right, let's see how much you guys know or how much you guys remember. So we'll start from there, some reviewing some items and see where these tools and technologies fits in. Okay. All right, so this is a circle, right? So where do we start in the circle?
Planning.
Planning, okay, good. So you guys are getting better at it, right? So we start with the planning process. And what is the main goal of the planning process here? So you guys remember anything?
What you're going to do, like to put together.
It's a plan, right?
Yeah.
It's a plan. So you are given a business problem, not you, but by the way, who does the planning? Project manager. Okay. No BA, no QA. You guys don't even exist yet because there is nothing. So first thing what happens is if they decide to build the IT system, the company brings on board PM who can basically estimate. So they give him the business problem, kind of like a one-page summary that you guys have for the Airflow. And he decides, okay, it's gonna take me this much time. Maybe he involves some technical folks, just idea, right? They don't have much details. So they will put some high-level estimate together, which could be paper napkin estimate. They call it napkin estimate. And say, okay, it's gonna take me $200,000 to build Airflow. And in order to do that, I'm gonna need this many resources. It might take 6 months or 2 years, whatever it is. So they just lay out on a piece of paper. That's the planning process. They don't have anybody other than the PM is putting together the plan together. Right? So if you don't exist here, there is nothing for you guys to do, right? Because you are not even there in the planning process. Okay? So once the plan is done, so PM decides, okay, I'm gonna need one QA, one BA, 3 developers, and those things. Let me start building the team. Okay. So that's where they move into the analysis phase. Next step would be analysis phase, and this is where they bring in one resource. Who would that be? Who would be doing the work in the analysis phase? So business analyst. Okay, that's the business analyst. They are the ones actually. Remember, you are given a business problem, right? You don't have much detail. So first thing you need to nail down is, okay, what is that they really need in the software or whatever, what features, all those things, details, right? And if you are talking about Airflow, what is they will produce as part of the Airflow? What is that you are working with? Requirements document, right? So they will produce at the end requirements document. Okay, and during this process, they might bring on board QA, basically, and maybe developer or some team, because what you guys need to do as part of the process, you guys will review it, right, and provide the feedback. Okay. So at the end of this document, basically analysis phase, what other things you guys have to do? There was a third document, right, in the folder, in the binder? Test plan, right? So typically the QA lead comes on board, okay, as part of the analysis phase. And they will look at the document and they will start building the test plan. Okay. So here, you will have a test plan started. Okay. And as part of the test plan, there are certain activities, there are certain things they document. You guys remember any of those? What is that they are documenting as part of the test plan? Anybody remember? Anybody read the test plan? Yeah. Well, what exactly they are doing? What is in the test plan? Somebody said estimate.
Well, they're estimating like how long it's gonna take, and also like they are writing down the test cases and test step for the QA too.
Very high level. Very high level. They are estimating, right? Mm-hmm. They look at the requirements and they say, okay, this requirement I'm going to guesstimate. Mainly 4 test cases I'm going to need. So they will come up with some number, and they will decide, okay, how long it will take for us to test this thing. What is the goal? They have to provide the input for the testing process, right? They have to give an estimate as well. It's going to take me 2 QAs. If you are talking about testing that flow, it might take 2 QAs, full-time QAs, to test this end-to-end once the software is built. So they'll put down all the numbers. They will also decide what tools they're going to be using. What type of tools, maybe TFS, ALM, as part of the QA process. What are the different testing sort of things? So that's all goes in test plan. So if you haven't read it, go read it now. You might have better understanding, right? Because initially you didn't have much idea what really test plan is. But now you can go and read it and see what it contains. Okay? So that's what is getting started here. Then once the requirement is done, who does the design? Developers or senior developer or architect, right? They actually design the system. They look at the requirements and they design it. Do you guys do anything as a QA here? Well, you guys didn't do anything as a QA?
We can do unit testing.
You guys do the unit testing? You don't do unit testing, right? But what is it you do in the design phase?
You understand the requirement.
The requirements are here, right? Requirements are done. Now they are doing the design. And some point you come in the picture, right? But what is that you do? What is your activity as a QA? Test design. I mean, you build the test plan, right? That includes some high-level designs and scenarios. But what did you guys do here? When we gave you 2 documents, right? What did you guys do? Review them, right? That's all you do. You don't create those documents, but you have to review everything, what they are producing.
3 C's and T.
3 C's and T's is here, right? Those are the complete, correct, and all those things. But here, you review the document, see if there is anything change in the system, what they are building. Plus, they are adding they will specify all the details, how they're going to build the system, right? So that is where you flush out. You said we might have to do some load testing. This is what is, it might, in the requirement, they might say 50 users, but here they say, okay, no, it's 100 users they want to build the system for. So you have to change your test plan accordingly. Okay, include the performance testing a little bit more for accommodating the 100 users instead of the 50 users. So you still have to review how they are building the system, okay? Because that's what goes in as an input. Now QAs, as we said, right, there are different kinds of QAs. You have functional testers, which are more you guys are working through, but they are load testers, which are specifically learning the load testing tools and learning the scripting and all those things. Okay, they might have more input than you guys have as part of the process, okay? Because then they have to look at that and say, okay, now we have to change our design, whatever the test plan, because now the requirements have changed or design has changed a little bit. Okay, but you still have to review the document, right? And at the end of this phase, you have solid test plan, how you are going to test the system from the functional standpoint, load, performance testing standpoint, and everything. Now here, what happens in the implementation? What is this phase? The design is done, right? Here. So you know what needs to be built. Now what happens here in the implementation?
Developers start.
Actually coding, right? So you're gonna start bringing the development team here in this phase. After the design is done, you're gonna have the developers. You will say, okay, you build the lender module. Somebody will take care of the login. Somebody will take care of other things if you have 3 developers. and they will start cranking the code. And the coding goes maybe 1 million lines of code they will write over 3 months or whatever, right? Now that when they are building the software, you guys are also not sitting idle, okay? Because as a QA, you have to do something here. What is that you have to do from the QA standpoint? Test design, is that the terminology? What did you guys do over last week?
Test cases, writing.
Test scenarios, test cases, basically all the designing, right? Test design, you can use that term as well. But you have to understand the requirements inside out and write the detailed test cases, basically. Ultimate goal is how I'm going to test whatever, since these guys are building it, and I know we understand requirements and design, this is the phase where you're going to start writing your detailed test cases, okay? Whether it's on piece of paper, like you guys did, or it could be in the tool, like TFS or Rflow, whatever the ALM or Jira or anything else. Okay? This is where you will write detailed steps, precondition, post conditions, everything goes in. Okay? In this phase. At the end of this phase, right, you have all the test cases nailed down. You can test the requirements completely. But you won't have software, okay? There is no software up to here. Once the developers are ready, done with the coding, that's where they will say, okay, we will give you the software for testing. Now you can go and do your actual testing. Okay? So that's where the test phase begins. So in the test phase, right, what is that you are doing actually? Execution, right? So you wrote everything here, created. Now your other work starts, right? Actually, you have software, you will run the step-by-step instruction, and then you will see, you will execute all the test cases. Now, as part of the execution, right, what other things yet you do other than executing test cases? Is there anything else that you have to do from the role perspective? So you have test reports, right, that you have to create. And it says how many passed, how many failed, blah, 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 all those things, right? What else say you do here other than that? Test case execution, reports. What other things? Defect management, right? So that's important part here. Anything that's failed, how are you going to communicate back? That's where your defects come in the picture, right? So you create a defect, send it back, and the developers will fix it. They'll send it back. You will test again. If it fails, you send it back. It goes in the cycle. Okay. Sometimes you might have to execute the same test case maybe 10 times before they actually get it right. Okay. The complex scenarios like lender one, right? Cannot approve or cannot access anybody else's application, right? If the two lenders are saying the same application, that means something is wrong. You have to create a defect and send it back. Developer may not fix it properly. So you have to retest, send it back. Okay? So that's the important process, defect management, that you have to understand. Okay? And we'll walk through this thing. Okay? So you guys have done work up to here. You guys haven't done anything here. How do you create defects? How do you go about anything else, right? So that's where we will focus a little bit today as well, starting today. Okay, what is that we do? All right, so let's say everything is good. Software is built according to your test cases pass or everything passes. You will release that to the users, right? So this is the phase. That's where they will test it from the business standpoint. Okay, and they can accept it, or they can create more bugs, right? But do you do anything here? Or it's all business users? Well, they have their own test cases most of the time. You don't write test cases here unless they ask you to do that. No, you don't provide them. You test from your testing perspective, QA perspective, but they will create their own separate set of test cases. They will not use yours, okay? Because they want to test from the business perspective. They will go a little bit more end-to-end business level. Well, does the process work? Can I submit it, get everything back? But they will create their own scenario. Okay? But you might have to help them out, okay, if there are any defects, because they don't know how to create defects and those things. If they find something, you have to report it back. You might work with the users and assign. So this one will repeat. Okay, implementation, test, again, that might repeat that process. So once they accept, you release to the production and it's all good. Right here. Now what is this maintenance? What is that really maintenance phase is?
So the help desk people maintain if they have any, like they are the end users, so they will be supporting, the users if they need help with the software. So like a help desk personnel.
Right. There is no system that is bug free. Okay. You will always have bugs in the system, whether it's in production or anywhere else. Okay. So once the actually users start using it, because you cannot catch everything, all the bugs will never be caught. So when they start using in production here, they might find something after it's released. And if it's small enough, you have to fix it right in the production. Okay. If it's something smaller, okay, something is missing. Maybe the drop-down list is missing some value. They say, okay, we'll fix it right in the production. We don't have to repeat the whole cycle. Okay. So there are small bugs. They can fix it in the maintenance phase. That's what the maintenance is about, right? It's a car maintenance. You maintain, you change the oil, and it keeps on moving. Those type of things. But if you wanna change the color, now you have to go repeat the cycle. You wanna add another feature, then you wanna repeat the cycle. Old SDLC. Okay. So if they are asking for more features, maybe Blender can actually do some more other than just approve or reject. They have to repeat the whole cycle. Okay, that's where your design analysis requirement. What is that you want to do? You figure out and then design it. How we can change the current Blender process, implement it, test it, accept it, release it. Okay. So, by the way, these are some that you will definitely get in the interviews. You will definitely get creamed on the what is that you do as a QA, what things you did as part of the quality assurance process. Okay. What is your role? All those are interview questions for you guys. Okay. So make sure you understand this inside out. And we'll get you this piece of paper. I have the printouts here. Okay. So make sure you keep this slide handy. Okay. And that one will help you understand what is my role, what type of things I have to do. And memorize it if you have to. It's kind of like an Indian way. That's what we do in the school. It's very different here. But this is something you have to memorize, then understand this as well. Okay. Any questions so far?
Can you tell again about you say 2 different QA? Can you explain again those?
Yeah. So then depending on the right, you have the requirements. So QA lead comes in on board in the analysis phase. Yeah. Right. And he looks at it. He comes up with a high-level estimate. Okay. And it says it's gonna take 6 months to test our flow. If I have a single QA. But the timeline, project timeline says, no, you have to deliver the whole system in 6 months. So the only way you can compress the time frame is to add more resources, right? So that's where they will decide, oh, I'm gonna need 3 QAs. I can have 3 QAs to test our flow, basically. And I can give them different modules to test. Maybe lender management module, somebody will take it. 2 other modules, somebody else will take it. And 3rd module, somebody else will take it. So they give those modules. So those are the three QAs are responsible for their own modules. Okay? So they start writing the test cases here, respective to their whatever module is assigned to them. But they still need to understand the overall process. Okay? They still need to understand the requirement in full, because otherwise they cannot write their test cases. Okay? I just can't write the application process, credit application, right? Approval process without understanding how the lender manage and other things are built, right? So that's where those things comes in the picture. Same thing, the developers, right? You might have 3 developers or 50 developers. You're gonna divide and conquer. That's how they will do. Okay? You divide and conquer, and they know exactly what they are building and how this fits together. It's like building a road, right? You are building a road from here to California, brand new. Do you think if you're gonna start building from one way, you're gonna finish faster? Or if you start building from both ways and meet in the middle, that's where you can get it done a lot faster, right? But they know exactly where to meet. The road will never go here, there, right? They know exactly what point they are meeting. That's what these developers do, as well as QAs have to do, basically. They know exactly how this thing fits together. Any other question? All right, so let's talk about, now we are talking about tools, right? What tools you guys use and what technologies. Before we do that, let's understand one more thing, okay? I think Dilip touched base this little bit earlier, but I'm gonna review one more time because you guys need to understand this process as well. So we talked about the developers, right? So we have different environments. So typically you have multiple developers. In most of the projects, you will have more than one, right? Developer. You have development environment, test environment, UAT, production support environment, and production environment. Do you guys understand the difference, what they are doing here? Okay. What is the development environment?
Coding, designing.
Some are hearing different things, right? So you typically, these are 4 different set of environments. Okay. Typically, in any company you go, you will have more than one environment. Okay. So you will have development environment, test environment, UAT or production support environment. Now these 2 could be combined, okay, depending on how big the company is. But this could be the same, okay? But we know companies like Nationwide, or they might have minimum 4 environments, okay? And the production is production, right? Our goal is to start with the development and get the code into production. This is where the business users will be using it, okay? Everything up to here, IT team, okay? No business users other than doing the testing here. So let's say I'm working, developer 1 is working on lender management. Developer 2 is working on login. Developer 3 is working on dealer management, right? So they are writing the code on their machine, just like laptops you have, right? Everybody has a laptop. They will be writing the code here, here, here. Now, at some point, they have to integrate all the code, whatever they are writing, because they are writing only for their specific module. So what they do is, typically by end of the day, they will put checking the source code, whatever code, and they will deploy to the development environment. Now certain types of testing that needs to happen here. You guys know what type of testing we will do? What about here on the laptops? What is the term? So they have to do unit testing. It's a unit, whatever work they're producing, they will do some type of testing because they're just not gonna check in the code, okay? They have to make sure that code works. And that's what they do. And they did, when they do it, they know inside out about the code, right? Because they wrote the code here, they're writing the code here, and they're doing some testing. So what is the unit testing, right? They do unit testing, but what type of testing is called? Is it a black box, white box? It's a white box because they know what is the code, how the code works, right? So that's what the unit testing is done here on the developer's machine. But once they deploy, and they check whether everything works together end to end. So there is the testing that needs to happen here, right? And that is called integration testing, right? So unit testing and integration testing, okay? Now these both are like a white box testing, okay? Because they understand the code, they know how exactly the function works, they write their own test. They don't use your test, okay? They will write their own test. But sometimes the developers, you can't trust the developer, okay? So as a QA, you will never trust unless you execute your test case, make sure it works, then only you say, yep, everything works. Developers make so many mistakes, okay? Because they have to type and code and do all, and thousands of lines of code they produce. They wouldn't know. Okay? Most of the developers, they know only their piece and how it integrates, but they don't know other pieces. So that's why they may not do end-to-end testing. So sometimes the lead developer or somebody in the team, they conduct the integration testing, make sure everything works end to end. All right, so once the code is good, they integrate, they do complete the testing, then they will release for you guys to test in the test environment. By the way, these environments are nothing but the bunch of servers, okay? Bunch of computers sitting in there. It's dedicated for specific type of testing. Okay? So you might have one server here or two server or five servers, doesn't really matter. It's called different environment. Okay. Now once you get the code, right? What are the different things that you can do? What types of testing you can do here in the test environment? What are the most common ones? Non-functional testing, but what is the important one? Non-functional you have to do, so at some point, but what is the functionality type of things? Because your focus is to test the functionality, right? Whether it works. You guys remember the terms of the testing? What is it called? Well, black box is a type of testing, right? So unit tests. So regression is one of the tests here, right? Okay, so these are some of the terminologies, okay? Make sure you remember that. Okay? Because these are kind of like interview questions as well. Okay?
Write it down or you have a paper?
No, I'll get you, don't worry about writing it down. System testing, functional testing, regression testing, right? These are the most common ones. Make sure system works, functionality works, right? Once the functionality works, can I do end-to-end process? That's what the system tests. If you change something and you retest, basically, that's a regression test. And smoke test is, can I access the Airflow application, right? That's kind of like a just basic smoke testing type of thing. That's what you're gonna do here. Now these are all black box or white box? Black box, right? Because you have no idea about the code. Because the only developers know what's in the code. These are all black box testing. All right, so now we release the code. You are done here. Now you might repeat the cycle, right? We talked about the bug fixes. That could happen. I mean, the bug goes into the developer will fix it, they will release the code again to you, and you will test it here, right? So that thing happens, that process. You can release the code to the business, and if everything looks good, the business will do user acceptance. You might do performance testing in that environment, and then finally you can release the code to the production environment. Again, you might have to do some type of smoke testing, okay, in production. As soon as you release, you will go and check, okay, is everything set up correctly, deployed correctly, and everything.
This is high level.
What is it?
Small testing is high level testing.
Yeah, it's very high level. You just go check it, okay, can I log anyone, right? And then as soon as you are logged in, you are good. You're not gonna check whether I'm on the right page or not. You should have already tested here, okay, those things. So at this point, you're just gonna say, okay, can I log in? Can I access this thing? That's it, nothing else. All right, so we're talking about tools, right? So this is the process, and there are a bunch of tools that are being used by different people here, right? So obviously ALM, QC, and VSTS or Azure DevOps. Those are QA tools or lifecycle management tools, right? So these are managing the basically requirement, designs, everything together in these tools. And we'll start with this type of tools today. Okay? But the testing side of things, right? They can write some unit tests in the N unit and J unit. Okay, those are coding frameworks for writing the unit tests. But they are used by developers only. Okay, so you don't worry about it because developers are supposed to write the unit tests using one of these tools, N unit or J unit. Now, when it comes to you guys, so you pretty much use some of the tools here, like Office, right? MS Office, you guys already used it, writing the test cases. But you could use TFS, VSTS, Jira, or QCALM. Or that could be one more tool. And we will start looking at this today. Okay? What is the process? Well, how do you go about it? You might have some automation tests, UFT, QTP, or Ruby Cucumber, Water Selenium, some automation testing tools. Okay? And then you might have some web service testing tools like SOAP UI, which we'll talk next Saturday. Okay, SOAP UI, how you can go about testing the services from the QA perspective. Okay, this one we'll see next Sunday. Okay, UFT QTP, not tomorrow, but next Sunday. All right. So today and tomorrow we'll focus on TFS, VSTS, and QCALM.
So those are the testing tools, like the testing languages, or the tools that.
I'll go over it.
Okay.
Okay. What is the main purpose? Because right now, whatever you are doing is writing on piece of paper, right?
Yeah.
But think through, if some like companies like Nationwide, they have a team sitting in India, they have some people here, some people in Vietnam. How do you manage these requirements to testing to a lot of documentation, right? Projects are much bigger. They might have, I don't know, so many modules and so many things. So they need something that can manage the whole SDLC, System Development Lifecycle. And what it means by that is this SDLC process, right? So this is the one they can manage in the tool. When I say manage, that means business analyst creates the requirement right in the tool instead of giving you on piece of paper. Then the QA writes the test case right in the tool that ties back to the requirement. Then you have developers checking in the code right in the tool. Okay, the whole process, and we will go through one today so that you understand how that process works. Now some of the load testing tools, JMeter, Load Runner, and we probably will not cover that here, okay? But if you are interested in learning or just getting familiar with that, I'll send you a document and the links. These are not free tools other than the JMeter, okay? It's the only free tool. This one is not a free tool, but you can learn about it. Okay, but we will not cover that in the class here. Okay? We'll focus on certain tools that we spoke about because this requires some scripting knowledge as well, how you can write the scripts, little bit programming as well. Okay. Any question? Anybody heard any other tools or technologies? And we'll talk about in order to learn this, you will learn some other technologies like XML, HTML, because without that you can't really operate some of the tools. Okay, so we'll talk about that next Saturday as well. Okay? Some of the technologies. Obviously, you need to understand some programming concepts as well as. So we'll talk tomorrow and some database concepts. Okay, we'll talk tomorrow as well, along with one of these tools. So it's going to be really busy this weekend and next weekend. Okay. But the core thing, can I write the test cases? Okay, that's your core. Tools can change over time. People will come up with new tools, but your writing process or understanding or analyzing the requirement doesn't change. Okay, that's the core. Without understanding writing the test case, you can't automate anything. Okay, there is no automation. So make sure you keep working through that process. Okay, you have to be able to write that. Okay, any question? Anything? Any other tools that you expecting to learn, or you heard about it?
What is Gmail?
So it's an open source tool. So that means you can use it, download it, and work through, right? Now, some of the companies, they like free tools. Like Soap UI is a free one, okay? You don't pay anything to use it. This one is not a free, UFT QTP. It costs about $50,000 per license, okay? But we'll use the trial version here. Okay?
Is Selenium free source?
This all are free. Okay, that's why the companies are moving towards the free. Free is a good word, right?
Yeah.
So Ruby, Cucumber, Waterfall, everything is free. You don't pay $0. You pay $0. I think that is just a development IDE cost. That's like $80 per year, which is nothing for these companies. So that's the reason I think nationwide range, a lot of companies, they use the same technologies. Right? Is Ruby, Cucumber, Water, Selenium. Okay. All right. So let's, if you don't have any questions, I'll move on to the next one. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at one more thing. You guys don't have it. Okay, I'll get you one. Don't worry. Okay, so let's review one more thing in the agile side of things. The reason we are reviewing here, because all the tools we're going to talk about, they focus more on the agile. Okay? I want to make sure you understand the terminology before we dive into the actual tools side of things. Okay, so you guys understand the waterfall, right? One thing at a time, right? You have to finish the phase, whatever the planning phase, then only you can do the analysis, then design, implementation, everything. What's the main difference here with the agile versus waterfall? Anybody remembers?
Agile gives small pieces at a time instead of
Small pieces, right? So in the waterfall, right, whatever steps you have, planning to maintenance, right? You're gonna, but that could take 2 months or 6 years. Doesn't matter, right? You have to do one step at a time. In the agile, typically the sprints, they are called the sprints. They are 2 to 3 weeks long, okay? And 2 to 3 weeks long, and you're gonna repeat the same planning to analysis to design phases within 3 weeks. And you deliver something at the end to the production. That's the goal for the agile. Now what's the advantage? You can release the code instead of waiting for 6 years. you can release the code to the end user with something they can use by end of 3 weeks. Even though it's a log, just like a login functionality, you don't want to wait for 6 years for them to test it or do the anything. You release it you release first three weeks, end of 3 weeks sprint. In the next sprint, you say, okay, now we're gonna build actually home pages. You build all these home pages for different logins. You release it for another 3 weeks. So you build the functionality incrementally. Okay, one thing at a time on top of whatever you already delivered. That's the whole point for the agile. Okay. Now, as part of that, doing that, right? In the agile world, they use a little bit different terminology. Okay. So now instead of the requirements, they call it user stories. Okay. They are called user stories and features. So remember, in the document that you have, right, you have the requirements. Lender cannot access whatever, can only approve or reject credit application, right? So that's one requirement, one line. You can technically list it out as a user story. Okay, one requirement, one story. Now instead of writing in the document format, you will be writing in the tools itself. Okay, so how many user stories we'll get if we convert our document to the user stories in the tool? We probably will get about 200 to 300 user stories. Okay, one requirement will become one user story. Okay. Now features, right? What is a feature? Remember how we group the stories, how we group the requirement. They are part of the modules. Lender management, you have dealer management, then you have all the requirements listed. So you can do the grouping in the tool in the features. Okay. So one feature could be lender management, and you can group all the stories that related to that under that feature. That's how you're gonna group it, and I'll show you. Okay, we'll walk through certain things. Okay, another terminology, right? You have product backlog, sprint backlog, or so this is like all the requirement, all the user stories. That is called product backlog. Airflow is a product. Any story that you're gonna write becomes part of the backlog. Okay. Now we talked about 3-week sprint, right? 3-week sprint here. So every sprint, you're gonna take a look at it, see which stories we want to work on. Okay. So development team, they take a look. They can say, okay, I want to pull in 5 stories in this sprint, which we can deliver and release to the end user. Okay. Those are the only stories they'll work through in the sprint backlog. So every 3 weeks, you say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna deliver. So we'll pull into the sprint backlog. Okay, and that's what they will start breaking down the tasks, design it. You will do from the QA perspective. You will write your test cases for those 5 stories. Okay, and start working it out. At end of the 3 weeks, you're gonna release to the production, finishing the work, right? And that one users can start using in the production environment. Sprint reviews and sprint retrospective. These are more like let's say you pull in 5 stories, right? But you could not deliver 5 stories. You can only deliver 4 stories. So you discuss here, right, in the retrospective, why we weren't able to deliver. Maybe it was too complex, or we chewed in more stories. So you come up with a plan. Okay, we will not take in this much work. Maybe we'll have a better job communicating or identifying. So those are some of the things goes on for the improvement process as part of the sprint. Okay. Let's see what other things, right? So here, the burned out chart, this is something the PMs can use. Okay, how many stories we have remaining and how many we already worked on and all those things. By the way, there is no project manager terminology in the Agile. It is called Scrum Master kind of like a Scrum Master who does kind of like a similar work as a PM. Okay. Everybody else is part of the team. So QA, BA, everybody is part of the team, like a Scrum team or development team. That's all they are part of.
What is the burn down upcharge?
Yeah, so let's say you pull in about 120 hours worth of work, right? Because you're gonna break down all the stories in day one on Monday. It starts Monday and ends on Friday 3 weeks later. On the day one, Monday, you will also pull in the stories and you will start designing the stories, right? At the same time. And you will assign the hours as well. Let's say task one, which is a database task, coding task. It takes about 80 hours for one story. For second story, it might take 40 hours. So on the day one, it's 120 hours worth of work. So it starts with 120 hours here. Then it's supposed to go down. Okay, so everybody reports the work by the end of the day. Okay, how much work I have finished and how much work is remaining. So that was this chart is about. It's supposed to go down as 0, burn down, right? That's what it's the chart is about. So that Scrum Master can track it, or whoever the team tracks it. It's not Scrum Master, but team can track it. Okay, how much work we still have remaining, and those things. Now, important part is they have daily Scrum meetings. So at 9 o'clock every day, everybody comes together in a kind of a 15 minutes meeting and say, okay, what I'm going to work on, and what is that I accomplish, and are there any blockers for my work, right? So that they can communicate better. That's all it is. Daily Scrum meeting. Okay. So these are some of the terminologies, right? Now we'll take a look at in the tool how we can create the user stories, backlogs. How do you create your artifacts from the QA perspective? Can I create the test case? How can I execute the test case? It's part of the agile process. Any question other than that?
So it looks like when we get like a update on our app, on our phone, like Facebook update like every week or so.
Yeah.
So it looks like they probably use this kind of.
Yeah, they use a continuous delivery,
okay.
which is similar to agile.
Okay.
You release as much as soon as you have one feature completed.
Okay.
So they will start building out the app. So maybe they have bi-weekly basis.
Mm-hmm.
Some like companies like Microsoft and those things. Actually, the Facebook delivers probably 2 times a day. Okay, some of these things. It's not daily, not weekly. All right. So there are so many features, so many things they do. Just get it out. Continuous delivery. Okay. So these are some of the terminologies, right? Backlogs, tasks. These are cycles, right? How big my sprints or iteration is or development cycle is. And this is where you repeat the whole SDLC. 3 weeks. Phases, right? So phase definition doesn't change. Phase 1, phase 2. Phase 1 is more like a longer term. So phase 1 is what feature I'm going to release over 3 months, and within that I'm going to have maybe 3 sprints or 4 sprints, something like that. It's a bigger chunk of functionality for the phase. It's like a phase 1, right? If you are doing the road construction, I'm going to do in a phase 1, I'm going to do only this part. Second phase, we're going to do second piece. Something like that. In all the stories, right? When you are working through in the sprint, they are on some type of board, which I'll show you how it looks like. So here is a typical board. Okay, this is a Scrum or storyboard. So this is a backlog item. These are all my stories. So for our flown, I might have 200 stories listed here. Okay, all those requirements. Then how many stories are in the analysis phase, right? Basically, how many I am developing, how many I am testing. So it's more like the board that we have here, okay, in the back, on the wall, right here. You guys see these blue lines here? So you have different phases, right? And every 3 weeks you're gonna update the task here. Okay? So that type of board, you're gonna list out all the tasks basically here on the board, like as a small. It's like a small piece of paper. You can list out what is the database task, what are the different tasks that goes along with the story. Okay? And then on the daily Scrum meeting, you move the task. What's the status of the task? You move it from analysis to design, okay, or development. Then developer takes over at this point. This one might be BA is doing the work. The developer, once the developer is done with the coding, then waiting for testing, right? In this particular board here. And then finally everything is good, everything is tested, is ready to be released at this point. Okay? That's how they move the statuses. Now this thing varies companies to companies. Okay, so board may not look same, but the concept remains same. It's mainly visual communication among the team members, where the project is and what's the goal.
So every company has like the visual one or the digital.
Well, if they are using the tools, then it will be more digital. But if they are not using the tools, then it will be more visual like. More something or like that. Okay. And some companies use both. Okay, because nobody wants to go in report their task. They will say, okay, you come here in the first thing in the morning, make sure your task is up to date on the board, where it stands. Okay. All right, any question? Which one? Okay. Yeah. I mean, here, this is a slide, right? So, I mean, whatever we created, right? That's what it is. But it's not a product owner or anything. I mean, it doesn't say something product owner is responsible for anything. But product owner is nothing but the role of the business analyst, okay? Who is a liaison between the business and the IT. And they are the ones actually responsible for maintaining the product backlog. Kind of like a BA is responsible for the requirements document, right? Same thing, product owner is responsible for product backlog. Right? It's just a terminology that they are using. Any other? All right, so let's see what else we can do here. So let's dive into the tool side of things. You guys all created the account, right? Yesterday? All right. But just don't open your laptops yet. Let me explain you what it looks like, and then you guys will go through that. All right.